Welcome once more, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another segment of AskOkey. Today we're going to depart slightly from our usual discussion on classic dress. We're going to talk about negotiation. Now, I don't claim to be an expert in negotiation. However, this is a request that was made specifically by members of the blog. Like I said, I'm not an expert in negotiation. I don't claim to be one, but I do have some experience in negotiation in my prior life as a financier, as a banker, and as an entrepreneur. So here we go. What is negotiation? Well, I like to say all of life is negotiation. Everything you do every day, you may not realize it, but you negotiate your way through life. More critically, with your closest allies and even your loved ones, it's a continuum. Every day is a negotiation process. And so when you don't think that you're negotiating, it's not this thing that you prepare for, that you learn. It is something you do subconsciously every day. And so the idea behind this discourse or this conversation is to understand better, at least from my perspective, what negotiation is and how to approach it. And so with that, we're going to delve into my structured notes. I've broken this down into 4 segments. Keys to negotiation. 1, be a person of value. 2, be willing to walk away. 3, create options for yourself. 4, preparation. 5, frame, and I'll explain what exactly frame means. So let's go back to the top and start from becoming a person of value. The idea behind becoming a person of value is to play only when you want to play at your own discretion. Because when you have to play, when you have to negotiate, you lose most of the time. Most of the time in negotiations, you win when you don't really have to play. Because it's very difficult to fake disinterest. You have to be truly disinterested in a particular situation to be able to gain the upper hand. And this will be expressed in your body language, in the tone of your voice, in your eyes, if you're an experienced negotiator, or if you're dealing with an experienced negotiator. They can read these things. And so rather than try to fake your way through it, you truly have to be a person of value, and you have to be convinced within yourself that you have value to offer. Maybe not superior value, but you should have some confidence in the value that you have to offer. And that comes across. It comes across very powerfully in your posture, in your body language, in your tone of voice. And so the first thing, the most important thing, as I always say, is to be a person of value. You have to have inherent value, and you have to know it. That's one. The second thing is being willing to walk away. Now, some would call this adversarial negotiation. And to some degree, yes, it is, because it is a game of brinksmanship. But it is very effective. But again, you can't fake it. You have to truly believe that you have the ability to walk away from the table at any moment. This also calls for patience. Why? Because you should always know, if you have value to offer, that a better deal or a better offer will always come along. It always does. Always does. And I'm going to use a simple analogy here. I'm a trader. Well, not a professional trader, but I trade markets. And like most traders will tell you, You don't chase price. And that is the easiest way to lose all your money, chasing price. You don't chase the tape. You have to start out with a plan and know where your lines are. You have to know where your buy is. You have to know your bid and your sell, or your bid and your ask. And so when you have a plan walking into sort of a trading situation, you know your price. And it doesn't matter what the market is doing, you hold on to your price. And you don't make a move until the market gives you your number. And sometimes you lose. Sometimes the market doesn't give you your number for a very long time. But you have to have the patience to wait it out. You have to be very, very disciplined. Same situation with business negotiations, even romantic negotiations, because of course, romantic situations, as much as we like to make them Cinderella stories, it's about power. It's about power between both genders. It is about power. And at every point, each side is jockeying to have the upper hand in that negotiating process. And so again, this calls for patience and being able to walk away, setting your price on yourself and not moving unless you get that price. That's one. The second part of being able to walk away is having an abundance mindset, an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. Again, this goes back to the first part of the second point. You have to exude that abundance. You have to exude that abundance. You can't fake it. You can't have a scarcity mentality because your counterpart is going to read that. They're going to read that in your body language. They're going to read it in your desperation, if you are in that scarcity mindset. They're going to read it in your desperation. And so you have to walk into these situations with an abundance mindset. Again, how do you acquire that abundance mindset? One, being a person of value and preparation. If you know you're valuable and that you have value to offer and you're prepared, then you have an abundance mindset because you know what you're worth. And you know that if this deal doesn't come through, another deal will. So that is the abundance mindset. The third part of it, of the keys to negotiation, that is to create options. You have to have options. I'm an option trader, of course. I trade markets and I trade largely options. So it's a different kind of option. So those are financial options, but you have to have options in life. And that is why you become a person of value, because when you become a person of value, you naturally create multiple options for yourself in life so that no single situation is a do or die. It allows you to sort of go into every situation with ease, understanding and believing that no single deal is a make or break. You create options. On my blog, my WhatsApp blog that is, those of you younger ones on there for years now, we have our very light moments where we talk about gender dynamics. Some of you are still young and courting either your girlfriends or seeking the interest of the opposite sex. And I talk about this all the time, about creating options. And there's a specific phrase that I always throw out, if you recall. And that phrase is this: a man with options is a beautiful sight to behold. A man with options is a beautiful sight to behold. Why? Because he walks with confidence. He walks with confidence, or she, in this case. But in that situation, we were talking mostly about men seeking, not the attention really, but sort of seeking the interest of the opposite sex. So when I say a man with options, I don't mean to sound misogynistic. It's just sort of in reference to the conversations we have about gender roles and gender dynamics. So again, I want to hammer down on this specific point. You have to create options. It's critical because again, if you have no options, you can't fake it. You can't fake it. The scarcity mindset or the scarcity instinct will kick in. But when you have options, you have an abundance mindset. You have an abundance, you express it through, again, everything, your body language, your eyes, the tone of voice, and the way you carry yourself. And so it is critical, it's really important that whether you're going to a deal situation or whether you're sort of in a gender dynamic situation, you have to have options. You must have options. And that is the only way the other party can respect you, because they know that you're willing to walk. Now, let's move on to the next item. Preparation. Preparation. Critical. Very critical. You have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. You have to prepare. You have to research your counterparty. You have to research situation. You have to walk into that room fully armed. Fully armed. You don't have to know everything. Nobody knows everything, and nobody can know everything, and nobody has a monopoly on knowledge. However, you have to walk into that situation with as much information as possible. And that inspires confidence. When you walk into a situation and you've done your homework, you intuitively know what the other party wants. You've studied them. You know what their hot buttons are. It allows you not to get emotional. You stay very objective. You understand what the carrot is, where the carrot is, and you hammer on that carrot. You dangle that carrot in front of the counterparty. You keep the conversation focused on the carrot. Now, very experienced negotiators or sort of adversaries will try to work you up. They will try to distract you from the subject by creating situations to stir your emotion. Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. You focus on the carrot. If you've identified the right carrot, you know what their motive is or the motivation is, and you keep hammering on it. Do not stray from it and keep your emotions away. Now, I'll talk about the last thing, which in many ways encompasses all of this. And we call it frame. It is a term that I believe, frame is an English word, but used in this context is a term I believe was developed and currently used in the shall I call it red pill community, for those of you who are in the manosphere, so to speak. And what is frame? Let's think about life as a painting. Every painting comes with a frame, and in that frame, you have a canvas, usually a white canvas. And then all of life, all of the art happens within the borders of that frame. The painting, the strokes, the brush, the easel, the paints, the colors, the sketches, everything, life as it were, occurs within that frame. And so when we talk about mastering your own frame, your life is your frame. And everything that happens in your life or that occurs in your life should happen inside of that frame, which means you've defined the boundary conditions under which you're willing to engage in any circumstance, in any situation, be it a business situation, a commercial situation, or like I said, an interpersonal relationship, even with your loved ones or with a romantic interest. Everything has to occur within your frame. You define those frame, or you define that frame, the boundary conditions, and you do not stray from it. Most experienced negotiators will try to draw you out of your frame. Because very often, if you're drawn out of your frame, chances are you lose the plot. Because all of our life is structured within our frame. And very often when we fall out of that frame, we're apt to fumble. And so any experienced negotiator or adversarial negotiator will understand one thing, that the first objective is to try to lure you or draw you out of your frame. And once they're able to do that, then they have the power. And then they dictate the pace and the tenor and the terms of that negotiation. So that is what frame is. Now, how do you develop frame? I like to look at frame as character. You can't fake it. You can't fake frame. Frame is character. Frame is the process of developing, building your own unique character. And it takes work. It takes hard work. It takes time. It takes experience. And it takes willingness to assume risk. High risk. Because when you've been through these circumstances in life and you've exposed yourself to various things, you build character. These are all character building events or character building processes. And so when you've been through these things in life, and some do have it intuitively, some are just born with that strength of character. Not all are, some are. Most people have to learn and acquire this character or this frame through the process and the vicissitudes of life. But it is very critical, and I think if I were to point out one thing as the most important thing in this whole process of learning to negotiate or becoming a good negotiator, the first thing would be to work on your frame. In other words, to work on yourself and build up character, because that is the foundation of everything else. All the other elements I've mentioned above are more tactical, for the lack of a better word. They're tactical and they can be applied and they can be moved, they can be adjusted here and there, but frame is static, it's not dynamic. It's there or it's not there. And if you don't have it, or if your frame is weak, a very, very experienced and skilled negotiator sitting across the table, be they a business counterpart or a romantic interest, they can smell it. They can smell it from a mile away and they're going to tear you apart. So that is frame. Again, how do you develop frame? It's the process of life, taking risks, adventure, accepting challenges, including fitness, keeping yourself in top form, because what fitness does is that it instills discipline. It instills discipline, mental discipline, which then transforms to physical discipline. And fitness is one way, whether it's sports or lifting or boxing or whatever it is you do, or whatever form of exercise or fitness. It is a process. There are principles, and you have to adhere very strictly to these processes in order to achieve your desired results. And in that process, it basically wires your mind, your thinking, your intuition, and most importantly, discipline. So frame is a wholesome thing, and it governs all the other things I've talked about above. So in conclusion, what have we learned over the last 15 minutes or thereabout? One, we've learned that one must become a person of value by learning widely, study, reading, travel, exposure. Just the hunger for learning and information is critical to become a person of value. Two, we have learned that one must develop the ability to walk away. In other words, you have to have an abundance mindset. Also, avoid being greedy, because sometimes we don't want to walk away because of, as they say, FOMO, fear of missing out. That will kill you. So when you don't have boundaries, or when you set boundaries for yourself, you're less susceptible to things like FOMO, fear of missing out, because you know what your price is. And you're not going an inch beyond what your price or what your number is. Third, we learned about preparation. You have to be thoroughly prepared. Going into any situation, you must do your research. You must study your counterpart. You must study the situation. In war, if you have read Sun Tzu or Karl von Clausewitz on war, and I've read both, you have to study the terrain. You have to study the landscape. You have to study the mountains, the valleys, the rivers. You have to know intuitively what actions the enemy is apt to take, and you have to have a plan to counteract those actions. And that is why you must study not just the counterparty or opponent, but you must also study the subject, which in war translates to the terrain upon which the battle or encounter would occur. 4, we talked about frame. We spent a lot of time on frame. Again, this is critical. Building frame or developing frame as an individual is a non sequitur. It's a must if you are to survive in this game of life. Because this game of life is a continuum, it's a series of negotiations. It's a continuum and a series of negotiations. So that's about it. That's a summation. I thought I would do this segment by request. And again, a slight departure from our customary discussion on clothing or classic dress. And as the segments come along, we're going to deviate from clothing. We're going to talk about other things, finance, some philosophy, and some of this is philosophy, by the way, just to sort of introduce some versatility, introduce something different to the discourse. So that's it for today. Thank you once more for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Ask Okey. Do not forget, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and please go to our Instagram page and follow us on AskOkey IG. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, and I'll see you on the next segment. Goodbye.